Let's get started. So, look, welcome everyone to tonight's AI Masterclass. This is the second masterclass in the series, and please keep an eye on your inbox for our next masterclass, which is storytelling with data, which takes place on Monday, the 13th of October, so next Monday. My name is Brian Gilson, and I'm here on behalf of the UCD Professional Academy. I'm delighted to be joined by Peter Monroe for tonight's masterclass. I've had the pleasure of attending an in-person session with Peter during the summer. I found it really informative, got a lot of practical takeaways from the session that day that have been used ever since. So hopefully you'll find tonight's class very beneficial as well. Just to give you a little background on Peter, he's an experienced technologist, technology educator, and AI consultant. He's trusted by Fortune 500 companies, and he's also an esteemed subject matter expert here at the UCD Professional Academy, delivering our Professional Academy diploma courses, developed custom courses, and he's created, I think, 3 of our AI-related skill sprint courses, which we can tell you about a little bit later on. Before I pass you over to Peter, I'll briefly bring you through some housekeeping. This session is being recorded, but you guys aren't on screen. Your cameras are automatically turned off. We'll be sharing the recording with you later in the week, so you can review it at your leisure. This session will take approximately 3 hours, finishing at 9:30. So we will take a break halfway through as well. So roughly around 7:45, we'll let you stretch your legs, get a drink of water, breath of fresh air, and then we'll be back to finish the session. We'll probably take a few questions kind of maybe before the break, and then again at the end of it, at the end of the session. If you have any questions, please put them into the QA box and we'll deal with them before the break and at the end of the session, like I said. But please don't use the chat functionality because it's disabled tonight, so just the QA box. We also have a handout for tonight's masterclass. You don't need it for the actual masterclass itself, but it's very useful for everyday life after tonight. So it's prompt engineering cheat sheet for business users. I'm sure you'll find it very useful. It's available in your LMS under the sessions and handout section, and I'll also post it in the chat section, so hopefully you'll be able to get it from there. So you've heard enough from me for now, so I'll hand you over to Peter, and I hope you enjoyed the masterclass and gained some really valuable insights. Peter, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So, welcome. So hopefully this evening we'll demystify some of AI for you and just kind of bring it down to earth a bit. So I want to give you a really a foundational understanding of AI, as you can see here. I'd like to be able to help you with some initial prompt engineering techniques to help to aid and improve your utilization of AI. And to look at some practical applications. So how are people using AI? What does it do for them? What does it do for companies? So that's really the agenda. So first of all, really just understanding AI, then into prompt engineering. We'll look a little bit at data analytics and understand, get some understanding of that, because data is intrinsic to AI. And we'll then look at real world applications. Okay, first up, just think for a moment. When did you last use a paper map? You might have never used a paper map, but I have many times in my life. Think about when you may have last used a phone book. I know that we all have mobile phones and all of our contacts are stored in mobile phones, but this is really just to show the pace of change of technology. And it can, for me personally, I feel like it can kind of creep up on me and I'm not really noticing. And then I've already got used to doing something in a totally new way. And I look back and I thought, oh yeah, I remember a time when we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have Google Maps. Think too about when you last visited a physical bank branch during business hours. How long ago was that? So, for me personally, I pretty much do all of my banking online now, and I rarely need to go to a bank. And so this is really just a way to show that all of these changes, these societal changes, these behavioral changes have come around because of technology, which is, you know, although it's incremental changes in, a short period of time, over time, when we look back, they're actually very significant changes. Think about how your role has changed since smartphones became ubiquitous. What tasks do you do differently now? You might do tasks through your mobile phone, which, previously you would have done in some other way. Also, if you think about your business 5 or 10 years ago, think about a technology or social media channel that you now take for granted that wasn't part of your workflow back then. How might AI become that next essential tool in a similar way? So let's see if we can shed some light onto what AI actually is. So AI is a mechanism for simulating human intelligence. It's not intelligent, I would say, or it's not smart. It's not something to that's going to take over us with any luck, and it's it can, but it can. It's a way of using computers to simulate human intelligence. So it can perform tasks like interpreting things, making decisions, solving problems, translating things, summarizing documents, um, creating content. So all of the things that typically or traditionally we would have used mental brain power to perform. Examples include things like chatbots and recommendation systems used in business. Um, so spam filtering, all sorts of things. So if you think about a technology like, or a goal, like our goal is to fly. Well, the inspiration for that may simply have been that we looked at birds in the sky and saw, oh, we've got something which is lighter, we've got something which flies through the air somehow. How can we do that? And so the technology that was invented was the aeroplane, of course. Well, if our goal is to think, our inspiration is really the human brain. And the technology then is a mechanism, a software mechanism to mimic the human brain. So the brain is made up of synapses which fire based on inputs. So these things trigger, and you end up with a cascade of triggering effects through the brain. Well, we can simulate that mechanism in software too. We can have some inputs with some weights to give greater or lesser prominence to some inputs than to others. So some inputs will affect the output more than others. We can provide some kind of function, and then a thing called an activation function. We don't need to go into the details of all this, but basically what happens through a combination of inputs and some mathematical functions, we can generate an output. So the idea is that we teach this thing. We build layers of these artificial neurons. So we build layers of those, and we have a number of layers, one after the other. And that builds up our network. So we call this a neural network. And essentially what the neural network does is to find patterns. And so if you take a look at this, think for a moment and try and determine what kind of patterns you can see here. How would you group some of these images? And you might be able to group them in different ways. You may have spotted probably the most obvious one, red versus blue cars. But is that the only pattern? There may be others. We can see here um, old versus new. So we've got some classic cars, we have some modern cars as well. We have different settings. So we have street scenes versus countryside. We have different style of car. We have sports cars versus family cars. We have indoors versus outdoors. We have different weather conditions. Some are on sunny days, some are overcast, and so on. So you may even find more than that. And this is one thing that AI is fantastic at. It can find patterns that for a human would require a lot more nuance. There may be patterns in the data which are, very nuanced and possibly undetectable by humans. And these are patterns which AI can actually find. Now, to do this, everything starts with a model. So what's a model? It's like the neural network I described earlier, think of all of those layers. Well, it becomes a very sophisticated pattern recognition system. Just as you could recognize your friend's voice on the phone after hearing just a few words, an AI model can also recognize patterns in data. And as I mentioned, AI models can find incredibly complex patterns across millions of examples that humans would never even spot. So, yeah, this is a model. Another example of a model would be a weather model. So we create a weather model which learns from historical weather data and it tries to predict tomorrow's forecast. Or a recommendation system. You may well use a recommendation system whenever you listen to a track on Spotify, or watch something on Netflix or other streaming platforms, or buy something on Amazon or other e-commerce stores. So a recommendation system sees what you've bought in the past and then tries to make recommendations for things it thinks you might want in the future. And to do that, it builds up a model which learns over time. A model which recognizes images learns by studying thousands or millions of examples. And so if you remember that neural network, it had a lot of inputs on one side and then outputs on the other. And so what the neural network does, or what we do to it, is we feed it loads and loads and loads and loads of data. And from that data, it learns over time. Now, what does learning mean? It means that it essentially adjusts these weights and biases. Think of little control knobs. And so every time it sees cats, for example, it tweaks these to the current image that it's looking at and says, oh, right, I've got a cat. Oh, we've got features here which look like the features I've seen before. I'm going to tweak these. It actually won't compare to what it's seen before, but you feed it an image, it will actually tweak these weights and these biases, basically statistical probabilities, and in that way it gradually learns. So if you feed it a lot of images of cats, all labeled cat, and if you feed it a lot of images of dogs, all labeled dogs, now you've built up a model. And what that model can now do is if you feed it another image which it hasn't seen before, it can now generate an output. It can now predict what it is, and it can say, well, that looks like a cat, or that looks like a dog. Okay, so it learns from patterns to try and make these decisions. So other applications would be things like fraud detection or optimizing supply chains. And it's kind of intuitive learning process. Okay. Machine learning is a subset of AI, and it's focused on data-driven learning of the kind that I just described. So machine learning algorithms analyze lots of data to identify patterns and improve over time. Predictive analytics, segmenting customers for marketing, for example, would also be applications. There's three broad categories of machine learning. One is supervised learning, and that's the kind that I described. And in fact, we'll go through these in a moment. So supervised learning, there's unsupervised learning, and there's reinforcement learning. So first of all, unsupervised learning, which is learning from data where we haven't given it any labels, and it's a little bit like exploring a new area without a map. Things like maze solving algorithms, or doing things like robotic vacuum cleaners. If you have one of those robot vacuum cleaners that goes around your house, learning where the room is, then you haven't given it a map, you've just told it, right, go and clean the floor. So it discovers the territory as it goes along. So this is unsupervised learning. There are other kinds of unsupervised learning as well. Clustering, which is where we try and group similar data points together. And something called dimensionality reduction, so simplifying data but trying to retain its essence. There's supervised learning. This is learning from labeled data, like the cats and dogs. It's a bit like learning to cook with a recipe book. So we've got some instructions, we've got some description of what we're supposed to do, and we can learn using that. So examples of that would be classifying things into certain classes. Regression, like think of trying to predict the house prices for certain houses based on the number of rooms or the locality. And then reinforcement learning. I don't know if you have a pet. If you have a dog, you might have tried training it. We had a lovely Springer Spaniel, and we had to train her because otherwise, whenever we walked her on the lead, she was doing what looked like Spider-Man impressions. She would pull so hard on the lead. And so we managed to train her not to. And so we reinforced positive behaviors. And doing this over and over and over again, she gradually learned. So this is where a model would learn by interacting with some kind of an environment. So you have the agent, which is the thing that's learning, the environment, and then you have a reward system. So you have some way of, rewarding, of providing feedback to guide the agent. Now, just before I go on, I thought what I'd do, I wonder if this will work. Yeah, let me see if this works. Okay. So I'm going to go to a website here. I wonder if, yeah, one moment. Let's see if this does the trick. Okay, yeah, so this should work. Right, let's try this. Okay, so this is a website called Teachable Machine. It's actually at teachablemachine.withgoogle.com. And of course, you can Google it. And so with this, let's just click Get Started. And I just want to show you how you can train a model. I'm going to go for the pose model here. I hope this works. Let's see. Live demos are always fraught with problems, but let's see what happens. So we're going to add some pose samples. So I'm going to ask it, hopefully it can use the webcam at the same time as I'm on a Zoom call. I know something's messed up with my video now, but let's see what happens. Hopefully you can still see me. And and you notice here immediately what it's done, it's given me some little, so it's identified features in my face. So it's eyes, nose, ears, so it can kind of see where I am. And so what we can do is I'm just gonna try a couple of things. So I'll look left and right. How about that? So I'm going to record a number of samples. If I hold that down, that's a lot of examples of me looking over to the left. I'll look up and down and left and over here and over here and over here like that. Okay, that should do. So I'll call this one looking left. Looking left. Then let's do another one. And this one, I'm going to be looking right. So this is hard to see the screen, but okay. Okay, let's try that. Okay, and this one is now looking right. So what have we done? We've just given it lots and lots and lots of samples of data, all kind of similar, but different. I mean, the lower set is similar to the top set. It's still me, but of course I'm looking in a totally different direction. So now what I'm going to do is train the model. Okay, so this takes a little time. For the models that we use day to day, you may use ChatGPT or Claude or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot or any of those. They take huge amounts of computing power and they're trained over sometimes months and they cost millions to train. Absolutely huge data centers are involved in doing the training. On this example, all I'm doing is training it on this this poor little machine here, which is just a single processor and with a well, and it will, we're only what, a fifth of the way through, so I'm just really going to let that carry on doing its training, and then we can come back to that in a moment. All right, hopefully it will train and keep training as we go. So what I'll do now is come back to here. So a key part of AI is data preparation, preparing the data and making sure that you have useful data, that it's clean and it's of quality. So data is really the foundation of effective machine learning. Making sure the data is of high quality, making sure it's relevant. All of this impacts the model's accuracy and its performance. Think of it as the prep work you do before the actual cooking. You want high quality ingredients. You want them very well prepared. And if they're neither of those, well, that could, result in a poor meal at the end. So well-prepared data really just sets the stage for for good machine learning. There is a phrase, garbage in, garbage out, which is a very old computer expression, meaning that if you give a computer garbage data in, it's going to give you garbage results out. And So this really, really applies with AI. Okay, so we've talked about learning. So what's taken the world by storm over the last couple of years is generative AI, where we're not just feeding in data and um, getting a tiny little bit of data out, like a prediction or a word, cat or dog. We're actually generating content, usable, human readable content, or images or videos, or audio, voice, music. All of those can be generated by AI. So the this term generative AI means that we can generate text, we can generate images, music, all of that based on learned patterns. Real world examples. Anytime we want to generate some content or generate some kind of design. So traditional AI, and I want to draw a distinction here between traditional AI and the generative AI. So traditional AI is classifying and predicting things. So is the email spam or is it legitimate? Which object is in this photo? What word comes next in this sentence? So that's really the traditional AI. Generative AI is all about creating something new. Now, just before we talk more about generative AI, let's go back to that example that we had earlier. And if you look at this, what we have on the right here is these labels, looking left and looking right. And currently it thinks that I'm looking left with a high confidence, 100% confidence that I'm looking left. And then if I gradually move to the right, you can see there is a point where it's that confidence changes. But as I now look further to the right, it's very confident that I'm looking right. So that's our trained model. And as you can see, it's actually pretty good. So how about that? Right. So you can try that yourself. You can go to Teachable Machine. You can try different kinds of poses. You could hold one arm up, or look up versus down, or stand on one leg versus the other leg, as long as the camera can see you. Or move in one pose, maybe a dance pose, and then choose a different dance pose. Anything. So you could try all sorts of things. So experiment. Okay, so let's leave that for the moment and let's come back to generative AI. And I'm just going to close that tab because, one moment, I don't need that to, yeah, okay. There we go. Right. Okay, so yeah, so generative AI is all about creating something new. So what does it do? It uses learned patterns to generate original content. So instead of just identifying patterns in data, it uses those patterns to create something new. It's like having learned the rules of language so that it can now write original sentences or poems or stories or summaries or reports or whatever you want it to do. It might have studied thousands of paintings to create new artwork in various styles. So examples of this, assisting you with writing, content creation, generating art or images or art, generating code, and debugging, and also conversational AI assistants. And for text, we use something called a language model. What we do is feed in massive amounts of text so that it learns how the words flow and typically connect together. So what's it learning? It's learning things about language structure. So what does that mean? It means it needs to understand grammar. It needs to understand syntax and semantics and vocabulary, and not just across one language, but across multiple languages. We feed it huge amounts of data. What about general knowledge? Facts, concepts, relationships about the world. Things like historical events, scientific principles, cultural norms, common sense reasoning. It can understand some degree of context. So how language is used in different contexts. So it can understand from a sentence how, if you use the word book, it can understand whether you mean physical book or whether you're booking an appointment. Whoops. It so it also understands and interprets nuance. So it can detect tone, things like sarcasm in text and intent in various conversations or text. Things which are agnostic to any task. Capabilities like completing text, summarizing, translating, answering questions. It understands patterns and representations like abstract relationships in data, like analogies, trends, and logical connections. So all of those are very, very possible with it. So models are a little bit like recipes guiding the AI's decision making. The training data is the information we use to teach the AI, like all of those looking lefts or looking rights, like those photos or cats or dogs. And the algorithms then are the step-by-step instructions an AI can follow. You may come across various of these terms, and these are broadly what people use nowadays. So AI is an umbrella term, and it actually relates to a whole umbrella full of underlying technologies. So it's a very general term. One of those is machine learning. So it's a subset which allows a machine to learn from data. Within there, we have deep learning. So this is where we use these neural networks to learn and to process data and make decisions on that data. And then finally, we have generative AI, which is a subset of all of those. And this is where we create new written and visual and auditory content given prompts or existing data. Now, just before we go into that, I just want to let's get a little bit of feedback from the audience for the moment. So I just want to, if we could do a poll, I think that would be great, Breen. First of all, let's do the first poll, which is on your experience level with AI. Okay. All right, so I'll end the poll now. So we've got, yeah, let's just end it right there. If I share the result, how does that work? There we go. Hopefully I don't know if you can see that, but anyway. We've got about 60% have used ChatGPT or similar tools a few times. Some people, about 14%, completely new to AI. some people, 23% use AI tools regularly, and there's about 3% who are implementing AI strategies in their organization. Okay. All right. So the yeah, okay. So let's continue with this. So the next bit I want to look at is some of the tools that we use. So you're probably very familiar with ChatGPT. Let's just take a look at a couple of features of this. There's, of course, you can add photos and files. One thing I like is deep research. This one allows the AI to take more time and actually do some research. I use this quite a bit. So if we wanted to, what should we do? Let's get a report on. Give me a report on the uptake of electric vehicles in Ireland. Okay, so I can do that, and it will go away. And oh, well, actually, won't. It will ask me some questions. Okay, so let's answer these questions. Let's use commercial and public. Okay. Include all cars, commercial and public as well as private. In terms of time period, let's work since 2020 to the present day. Include consumer attitudes primarily. And I don't need any comparisons with other countries or with EU averages. I simply like to understand how many vehicles and what the trends are in terms of people purchasing electric versus other forms of energy. Okay, let's try that. Okay, so it now can go away and write this report. So I find that very useful when I want to try and research things, when I want to understand how society is changing in some way. It takes longer, of course, than you may have been used to in your normal prompting. This isn't the only one I use. That's ChatGPT. I use Claude quite a bit, which, yeah, I don't know. I just enjoy it. I've kind of got used to using Claude. And, so again, with Claude, you have similar things. You have research there, so we could do some research. We have extended thinking. So this allows the AI to kind of think out loud for longer or trickier questions, and it will perform more processing effectively. It's just like a human. You know, if you ask somebody to think longer about something, well, obviously they're going to come up with more arguments, pro or against whatever it is you're talking about, or a more nuanced discussion. So this is really what extended thinking lets you do. There's one thing that's also recently been built into most of the AIs, the large language models, is web search. So you can leave that on or off. If you switch it off, then all it has is its training data. So if you ask it a question, well, it only knows the answer up until it's, when it was trained. We'll come back to that later on. So we could ask it, I don't know, ask it a question. So, okay, how do electric vehicles work? So something like that. And then it will think. But all of this data here is basically coming from what it's learned. Okay, so it can tell us something. The thing I like about AI is that I like the the backwards and forwards flow, if you like. So if we just create another one, another chat, okay. I'm thinking of what is we want? Some particular problem. Okay, presenting. Um, about electric cars to a business. I'm just looking for to a business audience. And I'd like to know what factors to consider. So I often use it just to kind of think out loud. And this can help me when I'm trying to figure out a problem, and I can then work with it. It will come up with these, some suggestions, things that I might want to look at. And yeah, let's just say, I notice that it then asks me what type of business. So yeah, I'm thinking of presenting to the car industry, so I'm quite nervous about that. Can you help me? Okay. And as you can see, it's giving me some good tips on how to do that. And I can continue. So and the conversation develops as I go. So I think of it almost as a companion, somebody who I can kind of, use as a sounding board, or something I can use as a sounding board. Okay, so that's Claude. Another one, another popular one is Gemini. This is from Google, and we have, very similar concepts. This one, as ChatGPT does, this one lets you create images as well. We could ask for to create an image of something. Create an image of a bear riding a motorcycle. Oh, and let's say make it photorealistic. I'd like it to appear in evening sunlight in a financial area of a city. Yeah, let's try that. And so this typically, image generation typically takes a little time, but hey, there we go. There are all sorts of image and video generation models out now. Typically for video, you can create generally up to around 8 seconds or so. And by stitching together 8 seconds is, many 8 seconds is worth, you can build up a scene or maybe a short story. Now, let's just go back to the slides. So, these different language models can be rated on a leaderboard. And if we just, I'm just going to take a look at, where should we go? Let's try, we could try, yeah, maybe LM Arena. So with this one, there's battle, where actually you can give it a prompt and it will, you can determine, this is how it's scored. So what happens is it will use all sorts of different models. You give it a question and it will give you 2 answers. And so if I said something like, write a haiku about a bear riding a motorcycle. Okay, and let's agree to that. And now what it will do is compare 2 different models. And what you do is you tell it which one you prefer. And in doing that, it will build up it will score them. So on the left, no, it doesn't tell you which ones they are. We've just got A versus B. Bear astride, chrome bead. Okay, right. Yeah, I kind of like B. I'm going to go with B. So you can choose down here which you prefer. I'm going to say right, that one. And we'll find out in a moment, hopefully, which one it is. And that was Quen 3, what's that, 30 billion parameter instruct. So anyway, you can take a look at the leaderboard here. So Claude Sonnet is very high for text, followed by Gemini, Claude Opus, etc., ChatGPT, and so on. So this is what the audience here has discovered. But you use different models for different things. Some people use them to create things like websites. So I can show you an example of that in a moment. We also have vision models, text to image models, like creating that image of a bear riding a motorcycle, image editing, searching, and so on. So that's what a leaderboard is, and that's what it does is it helps you determine which are the most useful models for your chosen use case. And some purposes will be better suited to some models and others to others. Okay, so what are language models trained on? Well, all of this stuff, basically. Huge amounts of data, everything across the worlds of arts, technology, history, pop culture, philosophy, science, literature, and more. They're trained on books, social media, news, and academic articles, conversational data, technical documentation, websites, things like Wikipedia, and much, much more. And they distill all of this human knowledge into models that kind of represent us. So, when you use something like Microsoft Copilot, well, what you're doing there is you're using an integration of a language model. So here it is over here, this bit with this blue circle with the white light bulb in it. And using it together with applications like Word or PowerPoint or Microsoft Teams or Excel or whatever, then the language model is used as essentially a service. So what's happening here is that anything you type into or you ask in Microsoft Word, in Copilot for Microsoft Word, goes over to the language model. It may be modified by Copilot. So we provide in a user prompt. It's modified by Copilot. It's given to the language model. The language model produces a response. The response then goes through some compliance and purview. It may go through some post-processing. It may actually use something called Microsoft Graph, which is any context and content that you have provided, particularly in a corporate world. This is what happens. So things like emails and files and meetings and chats and calendars and contacts, all of that stuff, sorry. And then using that, that may be used to embellish the lookup, if you like. And eventually so sorry, that's number 3 there. So that one goes in there too. And then I should have said that goes in first, actually. Then the response comes back, and we eventually get a result. So with Copilot, I don't know if I've got Copilot here open here. No, I haven't. So, but yes, if you use Copilot, then you can either use it with the kind of ChatGPT type of interface that we've seen, or you can also use it with those tools. Okay, just before we get into prompt engineering, let me come back to look at our question from earlier. This was ChatGPT, which has, so you can see on the right here, it's going through an activity process, and it tells you what it's doing at each stage. I'm piecing together the yearly number of EVs registered in Ireland, searching for EV registration numbers in Ireland for those dates, so reading the data, putting together data that tells me new electric car licenses, etc. So it's giving you some narrative over its process there. And as it does that, it's a little bit like a human researcher, right? Because as you start learning, you start finding information on the internet about something you'd not even looked up before. Well, you gradually learn and you think, oh, right, I found some interesting articles about this. Oh, that might take me off in this direction. Right, let's go and research that. Okay, oh, that's interesting. That might take me off in this other direction, and so on. And so gradually you build up a rich body of knowledge about whatever it is you're researching. Well, in this case, we have the AI doing pretty much the same thing. So it's going around gathering more and more information, and then at the end, after a period of time, it will produce a report. So here's our report, electric vehicle uptake in Ireland. So it's talking about registration trends since 2020. And you can see here that it's also giving us references to the data that it's found so that we can then double check. Okay, so EVs versus petrol, diesel and hybrid. So that was one of the things that I'd asked for. Consumer attitudes, motivations and barriers, and so on. So you get the idea. Now, how long would it have taken me to do that? Well, ages. And so for me, this is a fantastic benefit of AI. I just want to show you a couple of other tools before we move on. One is Perplexity, which offers kind of similar tools. Actually, what I'm going to do, why don't we try exactly the same thing? And let's try it in Perplexity. Let's try that. In fact, I'll take both of the prompts that I gave it. So let's go back to this one and grab this one as well and put that into there as well. Okay, yeah. Now on this one, yes, it has its research mode as well, but I'm actually not going to use that. I'm actually going to go into this one, which is a kind of a new, comparatively new tool. It's called Labs. And what this is going to do, again, it will take time to do its research. In this case, you can see 9 minutes, and it's going to create a report for us. Actually, I'm wondering, maybe I should stop that one. I could ask for a presentation. Well, let's ask for a presentation later. I could stop it if I wanted to, so we could do that here. But as you can see, it's going to carry on doing its thing. And again, we'll come back to that one later. Okay. So just to take a question here from one of our attendees. Does that mean like in 5 to 10 years' time, Google search will be history? Yeah, it might well be. Google themselves went through something of a little difficult moment a year or two back, where they wondered, well, does that mean we have no moat? In other words, do we have no competitive advantage anymore? And Google, I have to say, have been into AI for a long, long time. It's just that they hadn't really commercialized their offerings. And so they actually, it was Google authors who'd been responsible for something called Transformers, which, and the paper came out in, I believe, 2018-ish. And these are a fundamental part of language models. And so but yeah, a year and a half, 2 years ago, Google, many people felt that Google was, people wouldn't be using Google anymore. Google have actually built in some AI into their search now. So if you do a Google search, it will provide you a summary at the top of the search results of what it's found. And that's one way of adding value. I'm going to show you another way, another thing they've got, which I love. This one here, Notebook LM. I'm going to do the same thing again. Let's give me, let's copy it from here. Yeah, let's just search for that. So let's go into Notebook LM and create a new notebook. And what you do here, actually what you really should do here, is upload some sources of data. So you can give it things like PDFs, and it will then look through those PDFs and build up a body of knowledge that way. The other thing you can do is you can give it links to websites. You can also say discover sources, so it will then go and do a search and find some sources itself. So if I say, okay, the uptake of electrical vehicles in Ireland, I'm interested in consumer demand and any unexpected outcomes of the trends versus, this is probably really badly explained, but anyway, I'm hoping it'll figure it out, versus traditional petrol driven motors. Okay. I'm sure I could have worded that a whole lot better than I did, but anyway. So what it can do now is go and discover various sources. We'll see what it comes back with. And we have an electric vehicle survey by VW Ireland. Yeah, let's try that. How price, policy, and competition are rewiring Ireland's. Yeah, let's choose these. Irish Times view on falling sales of EVs, and so on. So we've got quite a few articles which we could use. Let's import all of those. Okay, and once they're imported, I can do a few things. First of all, I can talk to this. I can kind of ask questions. What's the latest on the uptake of electric vehicles in Ireland? So using those sources, what it can now do is interrogate those sources and try and give me, something which, some meaningful response. Okay, the uptake of EVs as experienced, whoops, sorry, I scrolled up there. Recent fluctuations following a sharp rebound in 2025 following a decline in 2024. Okay, so, and we could dig into that further if we wanted to. Now over here on the right, you have a bunch of other things. You have, first of all, it can create a mind map for you if you wanted to. So it will use the 10 sources, and bear in mind those could be 10 PDFs or Word documents that you could upload to it. I think it reads Word documents okay. So any of those could work. And so with this, you now have a mind map, which you can then explore and kind of, dig into. The other thing you've got is, how do I get back? There we go. So we also have reports, we have flashcards, we have a quiz if you wanted a quiz. The bit I like is this one, audio overview. And this typically takes a little time to create, but yeah, we'll come back shortly and have a look at that. Okay, so now I'm going to go through a couple of questions here. Abhishek asks, I see that Peter is using the Pro version for most of the AI tools, so I'd also like to know how much difference the Pro models make than the free ones. When a person should be considering of getting the Pro subscription for his most used AI tool, for example, ChatGPT? That's a really good question. Okay, so typically the difference between a Pro and a non-Pro, the free level, is it's mostly a matter of how many questions you can ask it, how much you can interact with it. So AIs have what's called a token limit, and they have restrictions on the amounts of tokens that you can give them for a given cost or a given subscription level. With ChatGPT, I'm just going to see if I can find it. ChatGPT. I'm just going to say ChatGPT pricing. There we go. All right. So you can see that with ChatGPT, for free, you get some access to GPT-5, which is the same model that I'm using, even on the Pro level, or the Plus level I'm on. Real-time data, file uploads, image tools you still get. You can edit code, custom GPTs, create and use projects. So all of these things you can do. Now, this is probably the thing you get, extended limits. You do actually get some other things like voice mode, videos, screen sharing. So you get some more features, access to deep research, multiple reasoning models. So creating and using tasks and custom GPTs. I'll come back to what those are shortly. Access to research previews, opportunities to try new features. Now, I haven't gone for the 229 euros a month model version. This gives you even more. But for me personally, I haven't felt the need. I have gone to pretty much the plus level on a number of language models, and for me, that's that's generally enough. I would suggest you find one you like and work with it. If it's got the right combination of features and usability for you, I would simply say go with that one. And it might be worth, shelling out. If the productivity gains for you are worth 23 euros a month, I would say great, go for it. It might not be. You might not feel like, well, I'm not really making that much use of it, or it's not, I don't feel it's for me. That's absolutely fine. You choose the one you want. I think I've actually gone for subscriptions on a few of these simply because I use them a lot. And I often use different ones depending on the kind of thing that I want to do. Okay, so I just want to come back to here. Oh yeah, no, it's still generating its audio overview, so we will come back to that. But let's come back to Perplexity. I know, I'm sorry. I know I'm flipping around between tabs here. I do apologize. If you recall, Perplexity, I was showing you, enabled you to create a report. And if you look in here, it even creates things like graphs for you of the data. So it helps you visualize the data over various years, and you can kind of see the uptake. It will even create web pages and kind of a mini application for you. It will create slides for you if you want it to. So these, I think, are some interesting directions that AI is taking. That the tools are actually getting smarter. Okay. So I've got another question here. This is from Edgaris. But there is a bright side and a downside where I believe is more downside in some cases. You present reports in 9. Oh yeah, you present reports in 9 minutes. where I believe it would take 2 hours to do yourself. Yeah, I think it would take, for me, it would take a lot longer than that. But yes, my point is, as we go forward, human beings will be more relying on AI than thinking or putting effort to do themselves. Yes, that's a really, really, really good point. One of the dangers with AI is that we become reliant on it so much that we outsource our thinking to the AI. We kind of, it's almost like a drug, right? We become dependent on it. We've become so dependent on it that we stop thinking for ourselves. I think that's a really, really, really dangerous road to go down. And so for me personally, I try and keep my brain alive by doing many different things. Yes, I do use AI, but I often use pencil and paper to work through problems myself. I'm currently learning Arabic for some mad reason. I've got no reason at all to learn Arabic. I went to Morocco earlier for a holiday in April and I loved it. And I just started there and I've just carried on. But I think anything which helps your cognitive abilities in terms of exercise, it's a bit like going to the gym or going for a run or exercising your body. We still need to do that even though we have cars. And so I think the same thing with the brain, with the mind, that I do not want to get to the stage where I'm asking AI everything and then that makes me unable to think for myself. I think I do not want, because what's going to happen? I'm just going to become some kind of brain dead zombie. I do not want that. So I do think that's a really, really legitimate concern and it demands vigilance. It also demands teachers in schools to help children understand the dangers as well as the benefits of AI. And that this becomes almost a national discussion as to how we use AI for good, but we keep it kind of in its box. We don't let it take over. Um, is ChatGPT or similar AI solutions run multiple instances of giant model, okay, which can handle any question from any domain, or is it multiple instances of multiple? Oh, I see. Okay. So the question here, I think, is asking, well, do we have kind of one giant model for, say, ChatGPT, and can it handle any question you like? Or do we have multiple different kinds of model, which some of which could be domain specific? In the ChatGPT case, and in Claude and Gemini and Copilot and all of those, it's typically a large model, and we call it a large language model. I'm going to give you a couple of caveats or a couple of alternate answers to that, because while for ChatGPT and Claude, etc., you do have one large model, if you have a specific use case where you have specialized data that you want the model to understand and be able to answer questions about, well, you can create your own model, and that would be a very domain-specific model. You can also take an off-the-shelf model and fine-tune it for a particular use case, a particular purpose. The other, so that's the kind of second answer to that. So there is the ability to create domain-specific models. The third part of the answer is that that some models use what's called a mixture of experts approach, where what they do is they understand your question or your problem, your prompt, and then they will direct that to one of a number of expert models, if you like. Some may be more tailored to mathematical problems, others may be tailored to other kinds of domains. And so that's another approach. So it kind of depends on which ones you're using, but in general, the largest public models that we use Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, Grok, they would tend to they would tend to be one large model at this moment in time. That may change as we go forward. They may, models, they're often very proprietary and they don't really release how they're built, but that's generally the case at the moment. Okay. I want to come back to oh yeah, Notebook LM. And if we take a look at this one, I don't know if we have audio sharing. That's the only thing. I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and see if I can share audio as well so that you can actually hear it. Okay, let's try this. All right, so this is the audio overview. And whoops, oh no, I've generated another one. That's not what I wanted. Let's play this one. I should cancel this one. Oh, I can't. Okay. I might have, maybe I messed that up. Oops, sorry. That one. That's what I want. For some reason, it's not actually playing.
Welcome back to
Oh,
the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty huge. Ireland's plan, its really ambitious goal, to get almost 1 million electric vehicles onto the roads by 2030.
It really is a massive target. And a necessary one, too, you know? Transport makes up about 18% of Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions.
So hitting climate goals means sorting out transport. No way around it.
Exactly. Electrification isn't just nice to have, it's central.
And we're digging into this using some really solid research reports from the Parliamentary Budget Office, the PBO, and also the Economic and Social Research Institute, the ESRI.
Yeah, they look at the whole picture, the incentives, what it's like for consumers, but also the big economic questions that come with it.
Okay, so let's just frame this challenge for you listening. At the end of 2021, only about 1.65% of all cars in Ireland were electric. That includes battery electrics and plug-in hybrids.
That's right. So to get to that 2030 target, 845,000 electric passenger cars they need, well,
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty huge. Ireland's plan, its really ambitious goal to get almost 1 million electric vehicles onto the roads by 2030.
it really is.
Hey there, want to share your thoughts on this?
this says to the view on range anxiety. Is there a problem in that consumers feel that
Oh, that's a great interjection.
Range anxiety is definitely a big one.
And we are just about to dig into those real-world hurdles.
Yeah, that psychological barrier is huge.
You're asking about the view on range anxiety, which is closely linked to battery degradation fear.
We did find some really solid data on that.
What's fascinating here is that the perception of battery life often lags far behind the reality.
Surveys in Ireland show that more than half of consumers worry EV batteries degrade quickly, especially after...
Okay, so you get the idea. That is the audio overview, which I absolutely love, and you can even interact with it as well. Kind of cool. Okay, so let's continue with the presentation. So with all of these, one thing you'll have noticed is that we had to type in a prompt. So there is if you like, a skill in using AIs, and that's called prompt engineering. It's basically the way we interact with the AI, the art and science of communicating effectively with the AI system so that you can get the results that you want. Just as you wouldn't ask a colleague, do this thing, AI needs clear, specific instructions. A prompt is just the text that you give it. It's what I've been typing into those boxes to ask the AI to do something. your question, your request, your instruction. So why does this matter? Well, AI tools are becoming essential in many, many industries. As I said earlier, garbage in, garbage out. If you give it a poor prompt, you're going to get poor results, which means you end up wasting time and potentially money. Good prompts give you more accurate insights, they give you better decisions, they give you more increased productivity. So the challenge is AI, well, it isn't human. I mean, they are incredibly powerful, but they're limited. They process information very differently than we do. They have particular blind spots that we need to understand. They can't read your mind or guess what you really want. So first up, the knowledge cutoff date. So this is what AI models are trained on. So they're trained on data. Sorry, they're trained on data up to a particular date, and this is called the knowledge cutoff. Think of it like a newspaper from, say, October 2024. If you asked it questions or asked it things about events in March 25, well, it's not going to tell you. So then we have the impact for us then is that this training data typically cuts off around, it depends on the model. GPT-5, I think, is around October 2024. Claude, similar timeframes, and others. So it doesn't know about recent events, it doesn't know about new products, it doesn't know about latest news, it doesn't know about your company's latest developments. So often we have to tell it. So we need to provide context. So we may need to give it recent news. It won't know about recent market changes, for example. We might need to tell it about industry trends. We might need to give it information about projects that we're working on, or regulations or policies that have come into play since the AI was created. Next point is this thing, the context window. So with the examples that I used earlier, so if I go back to that one that I used, what do we have? Let's try, that was Ellen Marina. Oh yeah, we had ChatGPT. So with ChatGPT, I gave it a question. Now it was a very short sentence, really. And then it gave me some more. And I gave it more. Well, this was sent to the AI. The AI then responded with this bit. Then what happened was that I typed in this, and actually what gets sent to the AI, because now the AI has forgotten the whole conversation. So what happens is that this ChatGPT application gives all of the conversation, all of the previous conversation, to the language model. So all of this stuff gets sent to it. So it has a look at all of that, and then it produces the next answer. And if I were to give it another question at the bottom, well, it would have to take everything from up there, all of this, and its entire report, and plus any new answer that I give it, and it sends all of that back to the language model. Well, what does that mean? It means that all of this stuff, all of that data that we put in that we send to the language model, forms part of the context window. And the context window is a little bit like a kind of short-term memory. It's the language model can only consider a certain amount of text at a time, and that's called its context window. Which means that if you have a very long conversation, it can overflow the context window and the AI forgets the earlier parts of the discussion. So typically the context window is quite high nowadays, but nevertheless it does have a limit. And if your prompt is very, very, very long, or your conversation, of course, is likely even longer, the context window can fill up very quickly. Okay, let's take a break there for the moment. I think we'll take just under 15 minutes. So let's return at 8:05 in the evening. So that's about, yeah, it's at about 13 and a half minutes time. Okay, see you shortly. Okay. Right. So where were we? Welcome back. So we were talking about the context window. So this is what we're saying really here is that the language model can only take in a certain amount of information at any given time. And that's called the context window. It can fill up, and in that case, it can only deal with what's in the context window. It kind of forgets everything outside it. So that's just something that needs to be managed. So there is actually a term that some people are using now. It's context engineering, but that's more in the realms of software development generally. Now, context window is a bit like a short-term memory. AI can only remember a certain amount of text, and it's a bit like the cognitive limits that we have. It's a bit like trying to remember, the last 20 minutes of a long talk, or the last few digits of a long phone number. One of the problems with AI is that, and with language models, is that they can hallucinate. And really, the AI will generate information. It sounds authoritative. And sometimes the AI will actually swear blind that it's telling you the truth, when in fact, it's making something up totally. So all language models at the moment do hallucinate, but hallucination is a problem that's undergoing a lot of research at the moment. The human analogy is like a very confident colleague who states facts that actually aren't true, but they say them so convincingly that you start thinking, well, I'll believe them. But so that's the problem with it. Now, why does it happen? Well, AI is really, at its fundamental core, it's really trying to predict the next word. So if you give it the cat as your prompt, it will try and predict the next word. So the cat, sat. And what we then do is take those three words, the cat sat, feed them back in to the AI. So now it has three words to work on. The cat sat. Give me the next word. The cat sat, on. So now we take those four words, feed them back in to the AI. The cat sat on the, and so on. So effectively, I mean, I'm kind of reducing it to its essentially what it is fundamentally, and it's kind of a glorified autocomplete. And so now, of course, it's much more than that really nowadays, but that's really the way it works. And so it's predicting text based on the patterns that it's been trained with. And consequently, it will create plausible sounding but false information because it's really just based on some statistical probabilities. And the probability of getting false information, of course, is, pretty high. So, with hallucination, your prompt is a goal that you want to achieve. The language model is designed to be helpful, in quotes. It's going to try its best to help you achieve that goal. So even if it doesn't say the answer, it doesn't know the answer, it might not say, I don't know. But it might offer an answer that helps you progress towards your goal, even if it involves making up facts or details that are untrue. So this is quite a problem, of course, and it's not something that and some people don't really appreciate that that's actually what the AI is doing. So quite important to understand that hallucination is actually there. Now, I don't know if I can find it right now, but I had a, oh, maybe I can find it. Let me just see. I'm going to see, I've got an article somewhere, or a site somewhere, on how many, it's on hallucinations in the in legal cases. So it's been a big problem. Okay, yeah, I can't find it right now, so I'll take a look for it and see if I can get it to you later on. Actually, having said that, I think I've just found it. Yeah, here we are. Okay, AI hallucination cases. Actually, I'll just give you the URL if you want it. DamienCharlatan.com/hallucinations. Okay, let's just make this a bit bigger. This database tracks legal decisions in cases where generative AI produce hallucinated content, typically fake citations, but also other types of AI-generated arguments. It does not track the wider universe of all fake citations or use of AI in court filings. So these have actually been hallucination cases which have resulted in a legal decision. Okay, so if we take a look at this, you can see that this was the latest here is 2nd October, and there was a monetary sanction payable by counsel who withdrew, State Bar notified. This one, 1st of October, brief struck, monetary penalty or 2 hours of AI-specific CLE, I don't know what that is, referral to the bar. So again, a penalty may be involved. And so, and many others. So some of these results in petitions being withdrawn, warnings, corrections which the court might accept, order to pay opposing counsel's fees. So that was what, $25,000 for that one. So there are consequences to many of these hallucinations. Just to say that when I took this from this was July 30th. So in July 30th, we had 234 cases across 16 countries. And, oops, we've now had, so what did I say? 234. That was in July. So just since July, end of July, that's now gone up to 427. So hallucinations are a real thing, an important problem. So what do we do? How do we recognize them? How do we manage them? It could give us very specific statistics or dates. Red flags, oddly specific numbers without sources. I often ask the AI to cite it references for where it took that data. Things like Perplexity and ChatGPT's reports generally are getting better and better. Citations and references, so claims that seem too convenient. Company-specific information. There may be information about niche topics that you can't verify. There may be inconsistencies with known facts. So always, always, always verify. Trust, but well, no, don't trust. Verify. Okay. Now, with prompt engineering, assume you're talking to a person. It might be a, it's an AI, sure, but think of it as a person and engage in conversations, not queries. So just like you've seen me do, just talk to it in English about, or your own native language, about the problem that you'd like to give it. So this one's pretty good. Write a one-page summary with the key points and insights from the 3 attached reports on generative AI, including its potential, its applications, its challenges, risks, and strategies for successful use in the workplace. So notice here that we're being very specific. We're saying exactly what we want. So we've said that we want key points and insights. We've said from the 3 attached reports. We've said that we want information about potential applications, challenges, risks, and strategies. So all of this helps the AI hone its result much more closely to what you want. An ineffective prompt. Write a guide on leadership for managers of remote teams. Make it good. Include some tips and examples. Don't make it too long. Well, what does that mean? What do we mean by make it good? I mean, how do we measure good? And what's the AI going to know by good? Include some tips and examples. Well, okay, it might get something from that. Don't make it too long. Again, what does that mean? What is too long? I mean, is 2 paragraphs too long? It might be. So an effective prompt now may have these elements here. It doesn't have to. It depends on what you're doing. For me personally, I find that for some tasks, I want to write a much more effective prompt, and I want to actually take a lot of time to craft the prompt to achieve the result that I want. Other times, I'm more interested in just speed of getting a response and something which is close to what I want. So I may not be too precise in what I'm asking for, too specific. So if we were to take more time, what might we put in? Well, we could give it a role or a persona. That's saying things like, you are an expert in physiology with 20 years experience in treating patients with back pain or something like this. So you could give it a role. You are a history professor whose specialist subject is the Spanish Inquisition. So again, any area. So you can give it a role. It may be a persona. You might want to tell it the kind of person or kind of persona that it is. You might say, well, you could give it an age. You could say you're 93 years old and you've had this kind of life. What advice would you give to a young person seeking to have a career in something? So you give it a role. You give it an objective and a purpose. You tell it what you want it to do. Give it some context and some background. I often tell it why I want the thing. So earlier I asked it for a report on electric vehicles. Well, telling it why I want that might be really important, because there could be different reasons. One reason might be that I want to give that presentation to the car industry. Another might be that I want to buy an electric car. Another one might be that I want to set up a dealership and sell them. So all of those would mean that I tailor the output in that direction. So give it some context, tell it why. Give it some action steps and instructions. Break it down step by step, a little bit like a recipe. Do this thing first, number 1. Do number 2, second. Do number 3. Do number 4. So give it some action steps. And give it a deliverable and a format, so something it needs to produce. I often want my output in Markdown format, which I can then convert to something else, or I want a table. So all of those are useful too. Right, just before we move forward, let's go to some more questions. And okay, so we have one question here with so Colin asks, with the obvious uptake of AI in reports, why are schools and colleges frowning on their use? That's a really good question too. I don't know. It may be that students are outsourcing their thinking to AI. The whole, one of the many purposes of schools is that we need to learn how to do things like compile a report. We want to do it by hand. And if you just give a prompt to an AI and have the AI generate it, what have you learned? Well, not much, I would argue. And so actually doing the thing, taking the time, the mental stretch, the kind of pain almost of going through and sourcing articles or research to try and compile a report yourself and frame it, writing an introduction, write a conclusion, write the stages in between. All of that process helps to build one's own reasoning capability, and one's learning capability, and one's communication ability. That's how we learn all of this stuff. It's a bit like becoming an apprentice and learning woodwork, for example, and then eventually, maybe after many years, being able to create masterpieces of beautiful furniture. Well, you can't do that if you just give a prompt to a robot and the robot builds the furniture. It doesn't really have that human touch to it. And so I would argue that schools and colleges are there in the business of education, and AI is can be counter to that in some ways. However, if things are taught, if the subject is taught in such a way that students appreciate the downsides with AI, which are that they can, that they can make us lazy, then we may be onto a better path in that way. Okay, we have another question. Are there other AI models aside from Copilot which are secure in terms of keeping the data outside of the LLM? I find ChatGPT to be the best, but I'm wary of how the data is used despite turning off the feature to improve the model. Again, that's a really good question. There's a number of ways of doing it. If you're going to use a commercial AI, then, well, really we're subject to their contractual terms, their terms of business, and ultimately trusting them to keep our data safe. If one option is that you run a language model yourself. You could run one locally. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, it may be slower, or it will be slower typically, but you can run some very capable models on on you know typically a high spec PC, but but you can run them even on a medium spec PC. You could run a smaller model. So much depends on the graphics processing unit in your computer, or if you have an Apple machine, then using Apple Silicon and what whichever processor they're using there, together with the amount of memory. Because this model typically has to fit into memory. So we need a sufficient memory to be able to run it. Okay, which AI would you suggest if I need to gather news for particular items on a weekly basis and provide me updates from multiple websites? Which model will suit me the best? Okay, so I think I see what you're saying. So I actually use that. I actually have that same scenario. I'm going to go back to Perplexity here. Now, this is just a fave of mine. And one thing you can find here, where is it? It is, and I can never remember where it is. Discover, we've got spaces, we've got, I can never remember where it is. Upgrade, install, no, maybe is it in there somewhere? No. In here somewhere, and I've forgotten where it is for the moment. You can actually put in a task, and you can have that task performed whenever you like, really. So the I can't for the life of me remember where it is. I've actually put some in. How embarrassing. But anyway, let's see what happens here. Have I got it down here? Deep research, labs. What do we got down here? We've got sources. Okay. That chooses the models, so we can actually choose various different models if we want to. We've got local files. Okay, collecting files. Where on earth is it? It must be in here somewhere. Anyway, I'm sure. Oh yeah, there it is, tasks. How about that? So this thing here, what this does is you can describe something. So you can say, give me a report on, well, actually, here's one. Analyze this week's most significant technology developments, focusing on AI and ML breakthroughs, major tech company strategic moves, emerging tech trends and their potential impact, stories which raise potential ethical, moral, or societal issues, issues where AI has failed, hallucinated, or misstepped in some way, and optional, any new creative or advanced prompting strategy. So that was my prompt. I can schedule this. So I've scheduled this for weekly Sundays at 5:20 p.m. And it's then going to notify me in-app and with an email and on mobile. So it will actually send me the information in an email every week, every Sunday. So it will do its research and then come back with that. And again, I can choose which mode it's in. So this one is using the deep research mode, and I've also got various sources. So I've asked it to search the web. I'm not looking at academic information or papers, although I could switch that on. And I'm also looking at social media. So with that, I get a report every Sunday. So hopefully that answers your question. This one's my favorite for doing that. There may be others too. And yeah, so hopefully that answers that question. do you think, so this is Val who asks, do you think people will ever be able to specialize in certain fields, like, for example, stockfish can, chess engine? In my opinion, I think the gap will get bigger and bigger over time. I think what that's asking is for specialists. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that's asking. I think that's asking about if you become a specialist, then is there the potential for AI to take over some of the specialisms that we know? I mean, AI can already do things like pass the US bar exam. And so what we have then is that for much of the knowledge at a kind of very middle tier, which is very, so general knowledge and even more specialist subjects, AI can be used for lots of those, right? So where does that leave us? Well, does that mean that people then become increasingly specialized and have chosen areas which AI doesn't know about? I don't think that's the only solution. I think that um, for me personally, I believe that knowing about AI is really important. Understanding it, understanding what it's capable of and what it's not capable of, understanding its limitations, the risks as well, the ethical and societal issues as well. And understanding all of that is vital because society is changing. And there is a fear that AI will take over the world, that it will become our masters someday or something like this. And I think the counter to that, the way of that not happening, is for us to be as informed as we can, to understand the technology and to demystify it so it doesn't feel like it's this kind of really powerful, weird, scary thing, but actually it's basically just a bunch of software and silicon in a box that's doing its thing. And that's all it is. And also to understand, well, how do humans compare? I mean, we have many capabilities that AI just can't even dream of doing. Not even, well, AI can't dream anyway, right? So AI isn't alive. It doesn't have the hopes and fears and dreams that we have. It's typically responsive in that it will go away and do something in response to something. It's typically not proactive. We're far better at having a wider context and understanding many, many different facets. I mean, if you asked AI to run a business for you, well, actually, Anthropic tried and it failed miserably. And so it's really about understanding what AI is good at and what it's really not so good at. I've got another question here. How can we protect ourselves against deepfakes? Could someone's voice be potentially copied to scam someone else? Yes, 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 yes. So voice models are very effective too. If I just try, let's try 11 Labs. There's a number of different ones, but 11 Labs is one of the leaders. This one here is their expressive text-to-speech model, and you can try basically any of these. I've gone to 11labs.io/v3. So let's try that one.
Okay, so like I finally beat level 42 of that game I said I'd quit like a month ago. And then for the final big scary mega boss, it's just like some cute little bunny rabbit. I just couldn't do it. It was so cute.
Okay, so yikes. So this is a text-to-speech model. So the model understands text and it spits out speech, audio that you can listen to like that. But you notice here that with these cues like laughs or giggle or hysterical laughing, it can then provide a response which could be perhaps a little bit more emotive. Let's try one or two others.
Arr! The open ocean! Smell that, lads? That's the scent of freedom! And just a hint of mutiny. Now grab your cutlasses, stow your fear! Tonight we dine like kings! Or we sink like legends!
Okay, so the questioner here asks, well, how can we protect ourselves? Because the danger is that if the AI can learn your voice, and some of these AIs can. I mean, you can teach them to speak in your voice. So you record an amount of audio and you provide it to the AI service, and then you can give it some text and it will speak the text in something approximating your voice, often very, very close to your voice, and increasingly so, even, very, very close. And so the danger is, well, could people be scammed in that way? Yes, that is a danger, because you could have a scammer where the AI effectively phones up and says, "Hey, I'm your relative. I'm stuck on the motorway. I need some money for the motorway toll. Can you send it over?" Or whatever it is, or I'm stuck in a foreign country. I can't afford the flight back. Can you wire me some money? And I think the counter to that is have a code word that you both know. And in that way, if you ask the AI for the code word, well, maybe that's a way that to counter it. But it will typically involve simple things like that. So I'd say that's one way to protect. Technology might provide other ways. We may get authenticated phone calls or speech or whatever. So those could potentially be other ways. Okay. All right, let's come back to this effective prompt. So here's a prompt here. And with this one, what we've done is to highlight various bits. So assume you are an experienced management consultant. So this is the first bit. This is the persona or the role. Then we have the outcome that we want. Develop a guide on effective leadership strategies for remote teams for Neopay, a competitor to Revolut operating in Ireland, currently dealing with low customer satisfaction rates. We're giving it a little bit more information here on that, so we're giving it some specifics. Tailor the guide to Neopay's business niche and structure it clearly using informative section headings. Begin with an introduction, providing useful background information and listing and then here we're talking about the output. There's 3 to 4 key leadership principles covered in the guide. For each principle, include 1 to 2 specific actionable recommendations managers can implement. Explain the reasoning behind each recommendation. So actually that's the step-by-step bit. This is about how we want the output. Keep the writing style professional but engaging. Again, some specifics. Target managers with intermediate experience. Aim for a guide length of approximately 800 to 1,000 words. Incorporate 1 to 2 relevant anecdotes or case studies to illustrate the principles if appropriate. Conclude with a summary of the main takeaways. So you can see here that we've broken it down. We've got the details over here, experienced management consultant, and that was the role or persona. We've got the objective and the purpose, the context and background, the action steps. So this is what we want it to do in quite a bit of detail. And then finally, the deliverable and the format. We want to, we've got a length as to how much content we want, and then the writing style as well. So quite specific. And you can even ask the AI to try and improve a prompt. You could give it a prompt and say, improve this prompt. You can also, this one's a useful one too. If you've had a long conversation with a language model, you can say to it, what prompt could I have used at the start to get this output? And that might get you there much faster. So if it's something you want to do again, you could give it the prompt that it gives you. This can be really, really powerful. So there are some techniques for prompt engineering, some foundational techniques, and I'm just going to run through some of them here. The first one is zero shot. So basically that means you're not giving it any examples at all. You're just saying, give me the thing, give me this output. Context, we've talked a little bit about. Instructions. Few shot is where you give it some examples. So you say, here's 3 examples of the output that I want. Can you provide me another output in the same style and format? Role-based is where we might answer or get a response from a particular perspective. One thing I found useful is, actually, let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to come back to, let's try Claude here. So let's just create a new chat. And what I want to do is, let's try this. I'm thinking of starting up a, actually, sorry, let's try that again. I'm going to try something else. I have a car dealership and I'm thinking of expanding into electric cars. I'd like you to model the, or to pretend to be 3 different roles within the company. I want you to form a discussion between 3 different people. One is the finance director, another is the sales director, and the third is the marketing director. I want to determine whether moving into electric car dealerships is a good idea or not. And I'd like you to have a discussion between these 3 roles. Okay, again, I don't know. That was just off the cuff, so let's see. Let's see how that works. Okay, so the finance director starts. Right, let's get straight to it. Electric vehicles are capital intensive. We're looking at significant upfront costs, charging infrastructure, staff training, potentially reconfiguring the showroom. The margins on EVs are also tighter than traditional vehicles at the moment. What's our payback period looking like? Sales director says, fair point on margins, but here's what I'm seeing on the ground. Customer demand is real and growing. We're already losing sales to competitors who stock EVs. Just last month, 3 customers walked because we couldn't offer them electric options. The issue isn't whether there's demand, it's that we're not capturing it. Marketing director, I'd argue we're actually at risk of a brand perception problem. Younger buyers, and these are our future customers, increasingly see dealerships without EVs as outdated, etc. So you can see that they can go through and have this discussion, this conversation, and hopefully at some point they come back to a solution. So it does look like they're forming an agreement at this stage. Okay, and then coming out with some kind of strategy. So, okay, it's an emulation of 3 people having a discussion, but nevertheless, it can be useful to help you, help inform your business strategy. So that can be a useful prompt engineering technique. So that's from multiple perspectives, multiple roles. Iterative really is progressively refining the prompt as we go. Chain of thought is step-by-step reasoning. It basically means think this through step by step, often used with logic or sometimes math problems. Tree of thought explores different paths, different reasoning paths. and to achieve an outcome using, by exploring different directions. Recursive, self-improving responses, and then something called meta-prompting, which is where you can actually have the AI write the prompt for you, or optimize a prompt for you. So, and many of these can be combined together. So, very useful techniques and tools to be able to work effectively with the AI. All right. So we won't go through the exercise at the moment, but yeah, because we really, don't have time. But there's many prompt engineering techniques, and they can be used across various different domains for different reasons. It might be that you want to do some analysis and evaluation of something. So comparative analysis, cost-benefit analysis, market analysis. You want to do a risk assessment, maybe. You want to validate some output or quality of a particular output. You might have business processes where you need to perform some maybe digital transformation in procurement, or do some trend analysis. There may be creative and conceptual output that you want. So you might want to produce adverts on, I don't know, for Instagram, or even banners or logos or anything like that. And communication and documentation. So stakeholder communication, knowledge transfer, employee training, all of those kinds of use cases. Okay, I'm going to move past that one too. All right. In terms of data, then we'll look at a few aspects of data. And first of all, there's really an integration between three parts. There's data analysis, there's generative AI, and there's prompt engineering, I should say, where the data informs the prompts that we're going to use. It generates, the AI generates some insights, and some analysis then improves the models. So these three work together. What I want to do is to look at some real-world case studies in AI, and there's across various industries. So this is GE, General Electric, in the US, and they had a challenge where equipment failures were causing unplanned downtime. So there were high maintenance costs, there were production delays, and they had a very reactive maintenance approach. So what did they do? They introduced an AI-driven predictive maintenance system where sensors monitored temperature, vibration, and pressure. And machine learning algorithms were then able to detect failure patterns. This can be really powerful. They actually reduce. The slide's a bit messed up, so I wonder if I can. Oops, sorry. No. So yeah, there was a 60% reduction in maintenance costs, 25% extension in equipment design. So you can see that there were some benefits. I worked on a project many years ago. It was probably 8-10 years ago, where I was part of the team to design a system which monitored winemaking, cheese making, beer making, so brewing facilities, any facility where temperature, humidity, water pressure, all of these variables need to be within a defined range. If they go outside of that range, outside of these thresholds, then we have a problem. The cheese is going to be it's going to taste awful. Whatever the product is, there's going to be some issue. And so we used AI, we used a machine learning algorithm to monitor many sensors within the production plant and to inform of when any of these thresholds were exceeded. And we would then use an alarm or alert on somebody's phone, and they would then be able to go and check and correct the system if they needed to. So it can be really beneficial to have machine help in solving these problems. Walmart, another example. They had inventory across thousands of different stores. They wanted to balance stock levels with the costs of carrying those items in store. So what they needed to do is to try and predict demand variations by location and season. Amazon do something very similar. They try and predict where products are going to be needed so that they can stock warehouses accordingly. Sometimes even preemptively before you buy the product. They will ship a certain amount of product to a certain warehouse so that it's ready there for people to buy so that they can get it next day if they want it. So to do that, we use analytics, data analytics, integrating historical sales data, weather predictions, consumer behavior. Use machine learning algorithms to process millions of data points daily and dynamically adjust the inventory based on insights in real time. And again, you can see some of the business benefits there that Walmart achieved. Okay. In terms of further real-world applications, we have applications across a number of areas. We'll look at these three: banking and finance, then healthcare, and then telecoms. So in banking and finance, Metrobank, a UK bank, used AI for fraud detection because there were rising fraud and money mule accounts, and new regulations for reimbursement needed them to be able to detect these accounts much more quickly. And they needed to protect genuine customers from any disruption. So they used behavioral analytics with machine learning to profile devices and transactions so they can build up a picture over time of what device customers were using to make certain transactions. Were they mobile? Were they at home on a desktop computer? Where were they performing those transactions from? What's the size of the transaction? So looking at purchasing behavior or transaction behavior, and then once that very rich data set has been built up, to detect anomalies. So what falls outside of those patterns? And if there is something falling outside of those patterns, do we then need to step in and ask the customer, is that really something that you want to do? Or can we do some further verification, for example? Okay, so they achieved. So yeah, again, this is some of their benefits in figures. So they flagged illicit payments, and they got a vast improvement over previous methods. They improved detection accuracy in fraudulent accounts, and a significant loss benefit there in first-party fraud. NatWest introduced a chatbot to deal with customer queries. Chatbots are a very delicate thing, I think, to introduce. I don't know about you, Have you ever felt when dealing with a chatbot, I just want to talk to a human? That's sometimes the case, but I'm hoping that chatbots will get better and better in general, and people will be able to trust them more and be able, if the chatbot is able to solve your problem quickly and easily, great. You'd probably be much more willing to use a chatbot rather than wait in a queue to talk to a human. Okay, but they managed to offload or deal with many routine queries using chatbots, which meant that the staff then were able to focus on higher value services. Now, so it reduced the strain on call centers. I don't know if this is a great, a great benefit. Very enabled closure of 50 branches in 2023. Yeah, but it is kind of the way the world is going, unfortunately, in terms of banks, particularly and branches not being such an important part of their business model now. Okay. Right, let's just, before we move on, before we do that, let's take another couple of questions. Geraldine asks, your question on EV uptake is limited to early 2024. Is that correct? It might be. Yeah, again, that's a really good question, Geraldine. I haven't taken a look closely, but I'd probably want to verify the output that it's given me. So I don't know whether this was ChatGPT, but yes, it's 2020 to 2024. Yeah. Now it may not be that it may be that data isn't available to the AI for 2025. It may be that the sources it's finding haven't got the latest data. That might be it. So it's kind of hard to know without really digging into this exactly what it's come up with. I do think you're right to question it though. And I think it's always really, really healthy to question the AI's output because it could be hallucinating. So we want to understand precisely what it's doing. This is another area of AI research, and it's called XAI or explainable AI, where we want the AI to be transparent and to tell us, we want to know why it's making certain decisions and where it's getting the data from. Thankfully, ChatGPT here is providing references for us, so we can investigate those if we need to. But yes, I think you're right to question it. Abhishek asks, there can be times when I copy an entire paragraph drafted by myself and then paste it in ChatGPT and then ask it to make a more polished or crisp or something else output based on the requirements of the situation. Does that mean that it might have ignored the initial part of the paragraph if that has gone beyond the context window? Will it not give me any notification or warning message? Good question, Abhishek. Just in terms of the context window size, let's take a look. So now where do I find this? I might need to go to here somewhere, and we need to look at models, and I somewhere hopefully. So this is telling us if we use the model via what's called the API. So if we have our own programming interface, this is telling us how much it costs. So it's costing us $1.25 for, it's typically 1 million input tokens and this, X number of output tokens. I think that's probably the way they price it. Now, notice here, 400,000 token context window. So, what's a token then? So, if I go to here, then let's take a paragraph, maybe I could take some of the output from our EV report, couldn't I? How about that? So let's take this. And put that into here. And you'll see that some of these are displayed in different colors. And each different colored bit of text is called a token. Some words can be represented as complete tokens, like this one here, of and electric and vehicles and in and Ireland. But others, things like uptake, for some reason, that one is 1, 2, 3 tokens. What else have we got? Let's try some others further down. Yeah, most of these are one word, but again, not all of them. We have some numbers in here. So you have 8, and then comma 554, I think, is another token. And so a token is generally roughly about 3/4 of a word. It kind of depends on the algorithm that's used to split these words up. But why do we need to worry about these tokens? Well, the AI actually, because it's a computer, it actually doesn't really understand words. It understands ones and zeros. It's all based on ones and zeros. And so it's all based on numbers. And so these words are converted to numbers, which are fed into the AI. So the question then is, well, how many of these tokens can we fit into an AI at any given time? And if we come back to our model over here, this one says you can give it you can give it 400,000. So that's probably about, what, 300,000 words. Well, how much is 300,000 words? I know. Let's ask AI. I wonder if it'll tell us. Let's see. How much text is 300,000 words? Okay, so a typical novel is 80,000 to 100,000 words. So 300,000 words would be roughly 3 average novels, or one very long, epic fantasy novel. War and Peace by Tolstoy is about 587,000 words. So 300 words is roughly half of that. So you could feed it half of War and Peace. The first Harry Potter book is about 77,000 words. So 300,000 words equaled nearly 4 Harry Potter books. If you looked at it in terms of pages, standard formatting, 12-point font, double spaced, that would be about 1,200 pages. Single spaced, about 600 pages. In reading time, average reading speed of 200 to 250 words per minute. It would take roughly 20 to 25 hours of continuous reading. So I'm hoping that's putting your mind at rest in terms of how much you can feed the model. It's a lot. So that's the context window. Now, different models have different sizes of context windows. So it kind of depends also on the model that you use. If you use GPT-5 Mini, oh, again, that's 400,000. If you use GPT-5 Nano, oh, again, that's 400,000. So if we ask Gemini context size. And Gemini is pretty good, 1 million tokens at once. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest. Okay, so hopefully that helps answer that. Okay, Papa, I can only do 8 seconds video of AI videos. What best way can I make a longer AI video? Well, again, it's kind of like the context window. An AI can only generate a certain amount of video at the moment. Some models, some time back, produced up to 4 seconds. Now, Google VO3 produces about 8 seconds. And hopefully as models and technology improves, we'll be able to generate longer videos. Having said that, one way is to generate multiple scenes and then stitch them together in a video editor yourself. So that might be a way to do it. Video models are also getting better at what they call character consistency, so that they keep the same character face or image from one scene to the next. Yeah, they're getting much, much better at that. Okay. Have I used Notion AI? I've just started and find it very useful for managing projects and tasks. I did have a Notion account some time back, but I kind of moved away from Notion, so maybe I should move back into it again and use Notion AI. So sorry, I can't really answer that question, Michael. Denny asked which app is Peter currently using. I'm not sure which one. I can give you a quick rundown of which ones I have used in this session. I've used, this one is Claude, so that's Claude.ai, it's from Anthropic. This was Google Gemini. We used Notebook LM from Google. I used Perplexity, which is one of my faves for doing research. Then we had ChatGPT, again for research, pretty good. And what else did we use? That was ChatGPT. Yeah, I think, oh, there was 11 Labs for the audio. Yeah, I think that was most of them. Yeah. Okay. And yes, we've got another question. Doesn't Perplexity use the latest data available on the internet? Yes. Yeah, Perplexity is actually, this is one of the reasons I quite like them. They've kind of combined a search engine together with an AI. So they trawl the internet and build up a very rich index of search, just like Google does. But in combining that with AI, you're now querying that search index when you want answers to things. So yes, it can come up with very, very recent answers or up to the minute answers. So yeah, very powerful for current affairs or up-to-date research. Okay, is there any truth or data supporting the growing opinion that with AI we're witnessing a developing dot-com bubble? Thanks. Yes, I think there is. I mean, there is talk about an AI bubble. My personal feeling is that just as the internet went through a bubble, and I was very much a part of that bubble, unfortunately. I had a software development company at the time, and we had to close down because really all of our projects dried up because they were, a lot of our business came through tech companies. And so when the internet industry was basically trashed, it was decimated. Companies were closing left, right, and center. But the internet is still here. There were some companies that kept going, and they kept persisting. And even though they might have done something in a very small way, they just kept going. Tesco started online just by selling wine. Amazon, of course, started by selling books. And so the internet, didn't disappear. I don't think AI is going to disappear either. There may be something of a bubble. So there is, I would think, and again, I don't have data to back this up, but my sense is that there is a huge amount of potentially overinvestment at the moment. There are many data centers being built around the world to support AI. And my sense is also that companies there's an overvaluation of companies. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there was certainly a slowdown, if not something of a bursting of an AI bubble. But the longer term prognosis, I believe, is that AI will still form very much a part of what we do day to day, and it won't disappear. Because people have just found it too useful. All right. Let's take another look at some application areas of AI. We have NHS, hospital trusts. There's one of the hospital trusts in the UK is trying to forecast emergency care. The challenge, unpredictable surges in accident and emergency patient arrivals. Which means it's very difficult to plan resources because you have no forecasts. You don't know when to bring people in, how many shifts to allocate to people. So it can be quite challenging. And there's overcrowding too during patient spikes. And so what do? We have they've created a demand forecasting tool which uses machine learning for lots of years of hospital data, incorporates seasonality, weather, holidays, and it's got a 3-week prediction capability. So it will give you a prediction with a level of confidence. So they've deployed that across 123 hospital trusts. It's twice as accurate as baseline models, co-designed with frontline clinicians. So again, when you're deploying AI in an organization, absolutely vital to talk to the people who are going to be using it and to be able that they're part of the process, that they're testing it out and using it as you try it out. Operational benefits, well, they can now proactively schedule staff and allocate beds. They can prepare better for pediatric versus adult needs. They can postpone elective procedures if necessary if there are predicted surges. And they can reduce wait times and improve patient care. Similar in Gloucestershire, they had a long stay patient issue. So only 4% of admissions become long stayers, but they consume 34% of bed days. So again, there's just in terms of manageability. So they produced a predictive model using 460,000 plus patient records. And they generated a long stay risk score with an early identification based on age, condition, and comorbidities. And so again, I can totally understand where they're coming from. What they want to be able to do is allocate resources in the best possible way. All right, telecoms and retail. So personalized marketing with Gen AI. Generic promotions yield low response rates. So calendar-based campaigns, not really customer focused. So we want to boost engagement during off-peak periods. So what's the solution? A personalization engine. So multiple models analyzing usage and preferences, and generative AI giving people very personalized messages. Okay, what were their results? Customers receiving personalized messages showed a 10% higher engagement. So they had higher conversion rates on upsell campaigns. So again, it translated directly to the business bottom line. They received more relevant customer communications. So examples of personalization could be extra data bundles for heavy data users. I've often felt when dealing with my mobile company, it's like, well, don't they know I use data? Can't they give me a better data plan? This was years ago, of course, before data was much more available. Could they give me discounted upgrades if I'm a long-time subscriber? I've been with my mobile company for many years. Why can't they give me some discounted upgrades? Age and location appropriate messaging tone. So again, you can adjust tone depending on your audience. This one here was a startup which was a personal styling service, and they wanted to scale. They couldn't hire hundreds of human stylists, but they wanted to provide a personalized service for a large user base. And what did they do? They used machine learning to analyze customer preferences. AI suggested clothing items and outfits for people. So it's kind of like a personal shopper, but with AI assistance. So the AI can actually help you, looking at maybe your body type, maybe the kind of clothes you like to wear, maybe the kind of, do you like formal or casual wear? What kind of situations are you wanting to wear your clothes in? All of those things, it could then personalize. It would give you very personalized advice on what kind of clothes to wear, what would suit you. And the amazing thing in this project is that they had 50,000 plus clients, and they just had 8 human stylists serving that audience. I mean, I find that incredible. They had weekly personalized outfit suggestions for each customer. Again, just think 8 stylists doing that. I mean, by hand, you couldn't. So yeah, 8 stylists doing the work of hundreds in a pre-AI age. So this then gave them a very highly scalable, personalized service, and gave them very much, competitive differentiation using AI. And this proved that small businesses can actually leverage AI effectively. This was actually so successful that Marks and Spencer's bought them. Okay, so how can we deploy AI within an organization effectively? Well, first of all, we need to understand the business problem, because there's no point in just saying, right, I want to deploy AI. What we need to understand is, well, what are the pain points in our business, and might these be solved with AI? We don't want, it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve every problem. We want to find out, well, was the return on investment, is it measurable? Could it be significant? Can we prioritize the impact on the customer? Because ultimately, without customers, we don't have a business. So there has to be an impact on the customer. Can we combine AI with human expertise? And I would suggest that, or in fact, kind of anecdotally, many of the businesses that I've seen using AI are using it not to replace people, but to augment people. It's not really so much a cost reducer as a kind of productivity improver and a quality improver as well. So people can actually provide a better service than they could without AI. If they deploy it, with care. So we saw some of these examples in which that was exactly the case. So AI augmented humans. And we need to focus on data quality. Remember, garbage in, garbage out. So we need high quality data to give us the high quality results that we want. Okay. And yes, we've seen, measurable business value in all of those cases. All right. So some success factors. Commitment from leadership. So leadership needs to be invested in AI and to be able to adequately, allocate resources and also facilitate an effective change management approach within the organization. So how are people's jobs, roles, functions going to change? And what's what are the people aspects that need to be taken into account here? A solid technical foundation with good quality data and tools and platforms, and integration with whatever systems are being used at the moment. And then a human-centered design. So again, very much taking the human into account, because you know, in a situation like accident and emergency, well, it's absolutely vital that the human needs are taken into account first and foremost. We need human oversight as well with AI. We need to detect when it hallucinates or it's biased. And we need to enhance rather than replace humans. Okay, there are some emerging trends. We've got greater adoption of generative AI, moving from what will happen to what should we do, as well as we've looked at some industry. There is an increasing number of industry-specific AI solutions as well. Okay. Okay, well, I won't go into all the questions for your organization. I will just answer one question here from Owen. What's the definition of AI slop? Is it a legitimate concern? Yeah, can be sometimes. AI slop is basically when you ask AI to produce something, and of course it's going to produce something. But is the something it produces very good? It might be rubbish. And particularly if the AI isn't constrained at all in what it needs to produce, if it doesn't have the understanding in its training data, if you asked it to produce a spec sheet for a new product that you've come out with and it doesn't have the data on the product, it might just make it up. So AI slop is really a case of AI producing kind of garbage output, but that typically comes from garbage input. You need to give it, it's like AI is kind of like a incredibly intelligent teenager or intern who knows a huge amount about a lot of stuff, but doesn't really have much life experience. I mean, AI doesn't have any life experience, right? It has no experience of life. It has no interaction with the real world at all. And, it can't build up an experiential view of life as humans can. So, yes, it's basically kind of limited in what it can do. Nevertheless, it can be very useful. So I'm hoping that some of the key takeaways here are that it can be very effective if you use it well. It does deliver real business value. You saw some of the cases we used earlier when we used, some of the tools that we used, a whole bunch of them, and there are more than this, of course. I've only shown you a few. So we need a strategic approach to adopting it. So clear business objectives and clear support from leadership, quality data, human-centered design, and yes, there are opportunities across all industries. Okay, I'm hoping that has been useful to you. I hope that's that's been of some benefit. I think unless if there are any more questions, then feel free to put them in. Otherwise, I'm going to suggest that we finish up. Breen, do you have anything that you need to say?
No, just again, I think you've handled all the questions. This is throughout the whole session. So thanks a million for that, Peter. No, look, just to say thank you, Peter, and for everyone that attended tonight. Hope you all found it as beneficial as I did, and there's still stuff that's when I met you in June that is triggering again, and some more developments there. So that was brilliant. Thanks a million, Peter. Just a reminder that we'll send out an email later in the week with a copy of the recording. So if there's anything that you want to go over again, it's all there for you. And a reminder as well that we've got a cheat sheet in the LMS for you as well. So some more handy hints. We'll reference that in the email, but again, it's there in the LMS for you now if you want to get it. If you found this beneficial and you like the format, please do check out our wide array of AI courses on the website. We're up to 3 AI-focused professional academy diplomas to choose from at the moment. So we've got AI for Business, Advanced AI for Business, and newly launched is the AI Prompt Engineering for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And if you prefer this shorter course format, more akin to Masterclass, then we have a number of skill sprints. They're 6 hours long. They're spread over 3 weeks. And Peter has been highly instrumental in developing them as well. So we've boosting productivity with AI, generative AI, change management with AI, and AI governance and risk management for business. And we're constantly developing on this side of things as well. So please do check them out. There's a few more questions coming in, Peter, as well, if you've got a few more minutes.
Should we give it a shot? Yeah. So the first one is if you use if you use Perplexity with ChatGPT models, does it give you the exact same answer as putting the request in ChatGPT? I feel it doesn't give the answers in the same format. It probably doesn't. I haven't actually tried it. Even if you give the same question twice to ChatGPT, it's going to give you a different result the second time because the models have a degree of randomness built into them. And so with Perplexity, the integration with the thing to consider here is that when you're using something like Perplexity, and I could just share my screen briefly again, when you use Perplexity, it's using that API interface. So it's actually using this kind of it's sending text into the GPT model, whereas and ChatGPT is doing something similar. But bear in mind that both of these tools are written by their respective organizations, and they will have their own prompt engineering internally, which will be different for each organization. So they are unlikely to produce exactly the same output. They may even produce widely differing formats. It may also be a degree of competitive advantage, right, where Perplexity may prefer to produce output in one format, and ChatGPT, OpenAI, may produce output in a different format. Okay, so hopefully that answers that one. So, next question, Peter. How accurate do you think AI can be with figures when setting up companies when using examples of similar startups? It can be really atrocious sometimes with figures. I'm assuming you mean things like financial data, mathematical problems, those kinds of things. Well, yeah, AI has been notoriously bad because it's a language model, not a mathematical model. And so while it can be great at language, it can often just try and predict the next word. So if you could ask it what's 7 plus 3, and it thinks, oh yes, it's 9. That has changed somewhat recently, in that models have become much, much better at what we call reasoning. But still, I would absolutely validate the results. I mean, I'll verify the output. You need to check it over and make sure it hasn't made anything up. Okay, I hope that's answered those. And I think we've come to the end of our time. Yeah, let's close there, shall we?
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Peter, and thanks a million for everyone for attending tonight.
Lovely. Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye now.